Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. A safe place where both women and men can come and listen to real people talk about their breast cancer experience and the effects that follow well into survivorship. Hosted by Carrie Madrid, a stage 3 breast cancer survivor and founder of the CARE Project. It's time to Handle with Care.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. This episode is a really special one to me. I'm speaking with my friend and fellow breast cancer survivor, Michael Singer. I consider Michael one of my survivor brothers, if you will. He's a lead advocate for the Male Breast Cancer Coalition, and he's going to share with us now his story of his own diagnosis, losing his sister to metastatic breast cancer, and why he advocates now. It's just straight from the heart, good information, and I encourage you to take your time and really soak it all in. Don't forget to leave us a rating and a review, and please share. We need to get the word out that men have breast too, and they are diagnosed. This is Carrie Madrid, your host of Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. And today's special guest is my friend Michael Singer, who is a male breast cancer survivor in New York. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I couldn't wait to talk to you. I'm sorry we had to reschedule. My life is a little crazy sometimes. So thanks for going with the flow.
I'm flexible. COVID has made everybody very flexible.
That it has. So listen, I want to get the background on your story from a male perspective, obviously a male perspective, duh. But I want to hear how you were diagnosed, what your treatment plan was, what your reaction was, all that good stuff. Because I think that in the conversations I've had with female and male survivors, there's a lot of commonalities and then there's some differences, and that's okay. But I think we need to talk about it so people are aware. So take me back when you were diagnosed. How did that come about?
Okay, well, I'll take you to the beginning. It was 2010, and I had felt a lump under my nipple, and it wasn't hurting, and it was slightly moving. It was about the size of a pencil eraser tip, if you remember what those were like. Mm-hmm. And I showed my wife, Patty. My wife, Patty's a licensed massage therapist, and she also specialized in breast massage. And she felt it, and she goes, well, we should definitely tell the doctor. So I was working as a facilities maintenance manager for the federal government, and I was getting ready to retire actually at the same time. So I said, right, well, I'll go, I have to go for a fitness. I'm leaving work. I wanted to go out with a full physical because my insurance was going to change. And I went to the doctor and told him, at first I went to the doctor and got the physical, and he did blood, they did urine, they checked me out, and I went home. And
Patty your said, typical stuff. So you had your typical physical exam.
Typical full fitness exam. And Patty said, what'd the doctor say about the lump on the nipple? And I said, I was embarrassed to tell him. And she said, you're an asshole. You need to go tell him.
Get your ass back to the doctor. I love her.
So the next day, as it turns out, the doctor's office calls and said, they got Patty on the phone. They said, oh, there's something with Michael's blood work. We want to run another test. can you have him come in? And she said, yeah, no problem. He'll be there tomorrow. So I go into the doctor's office, and I'm not sure what they found, what they want to talk about. And the doctor says, Michael, your blood sugar was really high. We want to run it again. We think, based on what we saw, you're diabetic. And I was like, oh, okay, caught me totally off guard. And I said to the doctor, Doc, while I'm here, I have this lump under my nipple. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, a lump on your nipple. He goes, let me check that. And for him, it was a red flag because he knows my family history. Everybody does, family history with the doctor. And he knows I lost my older sister to metastatic breast cancer just 2 years earlier. So when I said I had a lump under my nipple, he was like, he felt it. He goes, oh, Mike, we got to get that checked out. So he sent me the next day to a surgeon, and the surgeon wanted to do a biopsy. And God bless you women who've gone through this. He wanted to give me a needle aspiration biopsy. And I was like, well, you guys are going to put me to sleep. What are you going to do? He goes, no, we're going to do it right here in the office. So I had brought Patty with me because anything that's going to involve the surgery, needles or anything, I bring her because my ears will just zone out. Patty will pick up all the important data and then, relay that to me.
You know what? That's important too. And that's one thing that we always talk about at the Care Project is when we talk to someone who's been newly diagnosed and they're getting ready to go back in for more appointments and get results and all that, we always tell everybody, take somebody with you, right?
I think that's critical, Carrie. I think I would have missed half the stuff the doctor said because your mind just starts racing and thinking about worst case scenarios. And
yeah, and sometimes you just go in a fog and all you hear is want.
Yeah, if you can bring somebody, a family member, if not a friend,
someone who can be calm.
Very important to have somebody in that, that you can trust that'll keep it private if it's something that needs to be kept private.
Absolutely.
So we go into the doctor's office and, they got those paper tablecloths on the exam table. And, I got my shirt off and I'm laying on there. And he goes, all right. He goes, I'm going to try to get a biopsy with the needle. And again, I was like, well, you guys are going to put me on? He goes, no, we're going to do it here. No numbing, no painkiller. And he goes right for it. And when I tell you, I was locked in on that exam table and I was sweating profusely that paper was stuck to my back. It was actually turned into paper mache, I think.
Yeah.
And he goes, Mike, I can't get anything.
Because the needle aspiration, they're going in with the needle to the mass and they're trying to pull out some fluid.
Exactly. And
I can't believe they didn't do anything, not even a topical. I guess it wouldn't
Nothing.
matter because once they break the skin, you still feel it. You're taking me, I have the chills right now. You're taking me back to when I was laying on the table and they did my biopsies.
Oh my
I thought
God.
I was going to die. And I sweat right through the paper too.
Yeah. And Patty knew it was coming because, she's had things like that done in the past over the years. And, she'll, tell me, suck it up, baby, and this and that. But he goes, I can't get anything. We're going to have to do a surgical biopsy. So he scheduled me 3 days later. They had an opening and I went in and that was full knockout, IV, drip, operating room. Basically, they cut like a horseshoe under the left nipple, flipped it up, took a sample, stitched me back up. The only thing I can remember was being in the recovery room and my surgeon comes in and he goes, Mike, I didn't like what I see. And with that, I was still half under anesthesia. So I kind of like drifted right back out and he had to go back into surgery. He was stacked up. So he didn't even really get to talk to Patty at that point. So when they discharged me, Patty said, well, what did the doctor say? I said, all he said is he didn't like what he saw. And she goes, all right. They told me come back in, I think it was 8 days to take the stitches out. So, and they'll have the biopsy results. 8 days later, not thinking anything, never thinking cancer or anything like that.
I was going to say, how was that waiting period for you?
I had no idea what they were looking for.
So you didn't have like an impending feeling like, oh crap, here we go.
No.
You just were like going with the flow and.
I thought it was like a fatty tumor or something, but when he said he didn't like what he looked like, I had no experience with cancer up to that point other than my sister.
Your sister, right.
And at this point, I wasn't even thinking of my sister or cancer. So we go back to the doctor's office 8 days later, and I'm sitting on the exam table, and Patty's in there with me, and he goes, "Oh, let me go get your file," and he comes in, and initially we were joking around. It was very social, and then he came in. I could see his whole demeanor was different, and he goes, "Mike, I'm sorry to tell you, but your biopsy says you have breast cancer." And I looked at Patty and I said, "The doctor's got my sister's file. How could I have breast cancer? Excuse my French, but there's a fucking mistake here."
Right.
And he's looking at me, and Patty's already welling up. Her eyes, and the doctor goes, "No, Mike, men can get breast cancer." And I'm like, man, talk about trying to wrap your head around being a guy, and they're telling you have breast cancer.
Right.
I had no experience with breast cancer in my family other than my sister. And in my sister's case, she was diagnosed stage 4 de novo. And for those who don't know what de novo is she didn't have a diagnosis of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. She was diagnosed stage 4 de novo.
De novo, okay.
It's metastatic breast cancer right out the box.
Wow.
That's your first diagnosis. My sister, when she had gone for routine mammograms, and several months after her last mammogram, she had pain in her hip and went to the doctor. And after they did her scans and everything, she had metastatic stage 4 breast cancer that had already spread to her bones, her brain, and her liver. And what the pain is her hip bone was already crumbling. It was deteriorating from the cancer. And
it's terrible.
And in my sister's case, she was dead within a year. So when the doctor told me I had breast cancer, I'm sitting on that exam table, and I'm only thinking, oh my God, I got less than a year to live.
Yeah.
I got to like get my affairs in order. I got to make sure Patty's set up. I mean, I was freaking out.
So you automatically went all the way there.
I went all the way there because that was my only
experience. Because that's all you knew. Right.
Look, in my office, people came around for donations every year for breast cancer walks and pink this and pink that. Never said anything that men could get breast cancer. Even after my sister's diagnosis, nobody told me, men get breast cancer or maybe you should get checked or anything like that. She had three brothers, me and 2 other brothers.
Right.
And made no mention of it. So he assured me, goes, Mike, we could get this taken care of. What we'll do is we'll do a mastectomy, and we'll take it from there. And I'll call you later and we can discuss it further. Because I was shook up at the time. Again, Patty was.
I felt like I was in shock when I got my diagnosis. Like I fully expected that morning when I went in to get my results, I just knew already. I knew that it was cancer, and eerily, I had a peace about it. I can't explain it other than I knew, and I had a peace about it. But I say all that to say, when he actually said those words to me, I remember looking down. I had my best friend with me at the time, and she was like, "How can you be so fucking calm?" Those were her exact words. And I said to her, I have 32 basketball daughters at the high school I was involved with, and I have my own, and 1 out of 8 women are diagnosed, and that means that at least 4 of them could be diagnosed in the future. They will, maybe this is for them. They'll be able to look back and remember how Miss Carrie handled it. And she just looked at me like I was Lulu, right? But when I looked down, even though I felt calm, my hands were shaking uncontrollably, and I think I was in pure shock. So I imagine you felt the same.
I mean, there was shock, but at the same time, I thought I was a freak. I'm like, I'm a guy.
Right.
How can I have breast cancer?
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
I mean, I'm looking at myself. I mean, I'm not perfectly flat or ripped like a bodybuilder. Maybe, looking back, maybe I had a slight case of gynecomastia, which is, some people call man boobs or something, but nothing really outrageous or anything. And I must be a freak. I'm thinking of like things that you heard of when you were growing up as a kid, like hermaphrodites and all this. I said, how can I have breast cancer? It doesn't make sense. So Patty and I went home, And it was a very emotional, a lot of hugging, because again,
Absolutely.
I'm dead in a year. That's it for me.
Let me ask you this, because I know you and Patty are best friends, and she shares everything with you. How did she feel? And what was the best thing that she said or did to help comfort you and just give you a little bit of peace, like you guys are going to be okay?
Let me tell you, Patty's a rock.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done this, I hate to say journey, but I couldn't have taken this journey without her. Right. She was the calming effect. She was the logical person. She was the calming person. She's had experience with people with breast cancer in her practice. Again, nobody in her family and my family, other than my sister, had breast cancer. And my sister lived with Patty and I in her last year of life. And it was a horrible death.
Yeah.
But Patty was at that point, look, we don't know yet, because at this point, I don't know what stage I am. I don't know anything other than I'm diagnosed with breast cancer. So the one thing, though, that she stood by me, and it now looking back might have been foolish, is that I said, Patty, don't tell anybody that I have breast cancer. Carrie, I was so embarrassed because, again, am I a freak? What's wrong with me? How can I have breast cancer?
Yeah.
I had never heard of it. I said, don't tell anybody. I mean, I told my brother, and I told Patty's mom, who lived with us also in an attached apartment. But as far as family and friends, at that point, I didn't want to tell anybody. I was keeping it a secret because I didn't really know.
I think it's really important, and I'm so thankful that you're being completely transparent about that, because I think it's very important. And even though awareness is coming about for male breast cancer, there's still so many people that don't have a clue. And I think that this is one of the things that is so different about a woman being diagnosed and a man, because unfortunately, it's so common that women are diagnosed that almost nobody's shocked anymore, right?
Through this whole breast cancer scenario, you can go into any dinner party, social gathering. Women can talk about breast cancer. Oh, did you hear Mary got breast cancer? You hear so-and-so got breast cancer? When does a guy walk into a party or a bar or a bowling alley? Hey, did you check your breast today? Have you done a self-breast exam? Did you know men can get breast cancer? It just doesn't happen. Men don't talk about it like that.
Right.
We're so quiet about the whole doctor visit and all that stuff.
If you even go.
And that's my whole thing of being a male breast cancer advocate, is I'm trying to be the voice for the guys who are still embarrassed to talk about it. And that was me in the beginning.
Right.
I'm trying to be the voice of the guys who are no longer with us, because guys die at a higher rate of metastatic breast cancer because they don't talk about it. They don't know the early warning signs to look for. They're embarrassed to.
They're diagnosed later stage usually, right?
Exactly. So, trying to be that voice to get it out there. But going back to Patty, she through everything. I mean, doctor's visits. She's a breast cancer advocate for the Male Breast Cancer Coalition also, and she's just been amazing. And she's I'm telling you, without her, it would have been a different scenario.
So what happened? Yeah, I mean, God bless her. It's funny you mention her as like a calming force, because when I first met you guys, I want to say, was it in New York or Florida?
I met you at Florida the first time because the New York conference, I got stuck in Ireland, and
that's right. I
got home 8 hours later, and I got down to the city, and I got to see Miho and Co. and the Gomez's, because everybody else had already left town. But
when I met her and you, but in particular her, in the lobby of the hotel in Florida when we arrived for the Male Breast Cancer Coalition conference, instantly I just felt like I knew her my whole life. I felt like she was just like, hey, what's happening? I mean, like, she just was just, I'm so comfortable, so warm and welcoming, and yet like this badass. And I was like, she's going to be my friend.
That's my girl. We're married 35 years. We dated for many years before that. She's what they call Bronx Irish Catholic. So she's the one you want to have your back.
That's right.
You're getting into some trouble. But
when you told her, like, don't tell anybody. What was her response?
She honored my request at the time, and again, it was a very small circle because at that point, I knew I had to go in for a mastectomy. And when we got back, I'm in the Bronx. I'm right outside New York City. So Patty was right on the phone with Memorial Sloan Kettering. They're like the number one when it comes to cancer, and they're close by. And she's already on the phone, and she's talking to the doctors and getting the insurance. And I'm like, babe, the surgeon I had who did my biopsy, I liked him. He came in. I knew he had been smoking cigarettes. I could still smell the nicotine on him. We talked about fishing. He seemed like a real guy. He didn't talk down to me. He was explaining things, in a simplistic manner. And he said, he goes, Mike, I've done many of these. He goes, and I've even had, and he didn't name hospitals in per se, but he goes, I've had to correct many mastectomies that other hospitals had done. And I told Patty, I said, look, I like this guy. I want to stick with him. Yeah, Memorial Sloan Kettering is great, but I think I got confidence in this guy that it's going to happen. And I was really happy I did. And a week later, I was going in for a mastectomy. Crazy.
How did that grab you? I mean, just like, it's one thing to hear you have breast cancer. I'm trying to think like a man right now. So you're told you have breast cancer. You have to wrap your mind around that. First of all, you never knew that could be. Second of all, you have your sister's, death on your mind. So you're automatically thinking you're a goner. And then on top of that, you as a man are told you're going to have a mastectomy.
It's just,
did you go into the fight or flight like, okay, fine, let's do what we got to do? Or were you still sort of apprehensive about it?
I knew it had to be addressed. I knew because of what happened to my sister, it had to be addressed. It wasn't something that we could wait or think about. We went home from the doctor's office. I tried Googling male breast cancer. There was nothing on the internet. This is 2010. I didn't see anything about the Male Breast Cancer Coalition. American Cancer Society didn't have anything on their website. Komen didn't have anything on their website. There was no Mediviva, MedUp. There were none of these organizations that mentioned men with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And YouTube had one or two guys that had mastectomies, and that was all I had seen going into it, that, all right, there's another guy out there who had a mastectomy. But
right. So that you're not a freak. You're not.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm still a freak though, Carrie. I'm like, who else? Nobody that I know of. I mean, This is just a person on YouTube, and no information out there. So I was apprehensive in that thing because I still couldn't wrap my head around it. But
right.
We went into the hospital, a week later, and the doctors, I talked to the surgeon on the phone. We talked about it. He goes, I'm going to perform mastectomy. Unfortunately, there was no talk about taking the other breast. Mm-hmm. There was no talk about reconstruction. There was no talk about any of that other than I'm going to perform a mastectomy, and no nipple scarring, nothing like that. And I got to the hospital, and my wife and my childhood friend that I grew up with came to support Patty while I was in surgery.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, we're going to take you up shortly, but first we have to do something called lymphatic mapping. And I was like, well, the doctor didn't mention anything about lymphatic mapping. Okay, let's go for it. So they take me in a wheelchair, and they leave Patty and my friend in the waiting room, and the orderly is taking me, and I'm like, what's the lymphatic mapping all about? Oh, the doctor will explain it to you. And
right there, you're like, oh, shit.
They take you to a lead-lined room with a flat,
Were you like in the basement somewhere?
Yes, in the basement, in a lead-lined room. And the doctor comes in with this insulated case or something like that. And he goes, okay, what we're going to do now is lymphatic mapping. It's going to be a series of 7 needles around your breast at different depths that will light up under special lights during surgery so that they could see the lymphatic system and where it's draining to.
I thought I didn't have that, but I did.
And at this point, all I heard was 7 needles in my breast.
In my breast,
and
right.
I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
No, nothing to calm me down. No anesthetic. I'm like, So here I'm.
You're like, can I get an Ativan?
Carrie, there was nothing. I was so freaked out. So I'm laying there again, paper mache thing, sweating, and the doctor proceeds to go with these needles at different depths, and they're injecting this radioactive dye.
I did have that. I didn't think I had that. When I read your story and I saw the mapping, I guess I didn't know the name of it. Because I remember being taken to a basement, placed on a table, almost similar to the kind where you have like a bone scan, and them doing injections. And I was like,
when
I
tell you,
and then they take you up to surgery.
When
right?
I tell you, it was lights out for me at that point. They could have performed a lobotomy. It would. I was shot after that, because when they wheeled me out of the room, Patty and my friend, they're standing at the end of the hallway. I'm coming out, and I was white as a ghost. I mean,
I bet.
I was just pale. The blood had left me, and now they're going to take me up to surgery.
Yeah.
And I told Patty what just happened, and she goes, "Oh my God." As we get up to the surgical suite, there's the anesthesiologist, and I knew him because he did the anesthesia when they did the nipple biopsy. I said, dude, you got to give me something. I'm about to freak out over here, because I told him what just happened. He goes, "I got you covered." I'm telling you, within 2 minutes, he had an IV port in the top of my hand, and he put some happy juice in there, and I was like, "Oh God, thank you."
I know that feeling. I tell every surgery I've ever had, I always make friends with the anesthesiologist. You know, when they come to talk to you beforehand and, do their little calculations, I'm always like, "No, look, I got to tell you a secret." And they're like, "What?" And I always tell them, "I really love you. Like, I don't care about all these other people, but I love you, and I'm trusting you to knock me out." Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But he made me feel good, and then my surgeon came, and he talked a little bit about it, reassuring. Patty was still there. He was talking to her, and then he goes, "Okay, let's go get the show started. I'm gonna go wash up." He goes, and they wheel me into the room, and they moved me onto the surgical table, and they put me like Jesus Christ.
That's what I always say. They put you on the cross.
The arms were strapped out.
Yeah.
You're naked other than the little surgical sheet on you.
Yeah.
And now the anesthesiologist and the surgical nurse are conversing, and they're talking. And he goes, "Okay, Mike, I'm gonna put you out now, and I want you to just count back from 10. I don't think I got to 9, and I was gone.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear anything. Next thing I did is I woke up in recovery, and oh man, I was bandaged up in recovery. I was like the mummy.
Yeah.
And they had those the drains. I had 2 drains hanging out of me, and I couldn't see I couldn't see the incision or anything, because I was taped up pretty good. And basically, they explained to me what they did is they performed a mastectomy. And then through that lymphatic mapping, they go to the lymph nodes to look for the sentinel, non-sentinel node. And while you're still on the operating table, they take those in and have them biopsied. Right. And if there's cancer in them, they continue taking lymph nodes. Right. In my case, they were clear, and he was able to close me up at that point, which was a godsend at that point, because, it's 2 to.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Can you have zero interest in something and still really want it? Your wallet would say yes. And with Simply Zero from South Carolina Federal Credit Union, you can transfer credit card balances and get 0% intro APR for 12 months. That's right. No interest all year. So you pay less and keep more. To learn more, visit scfederal.org/simplyzero. That's scfederal.org/simplyzero. Variable APR ranges from 11.74% to 17.99% thereafter. Limited time offer. Restrictions apply.
3 lymph nodes, and you're out of there. So my biopsy came back with a stage 2B ductal carcinoma in situ, and ER/PR positive. And I think that they could have discharged me, but I was feeling a lot of pain, so they kept me overnight.
Me too.
And Patty stayed overnight with me at the hospital. Mm-hmm. Her and my friend and another friend who showed up to support them all went to the bar during my surgery.
Yeah.
So when they got back to recovery, they were whacked. I think they were as whacked as I was, really. But they went out and got me some pasta vazul. For those of you who don't know, it's a nice Italian bean soup because I hadn't eaten yet, and I was very hungry at the time. And they still giving me some pain meds, and I had the soup, and pretty much I slept through to the night.
How was your recovery? Like, how long did it take? Did you get your drains out in like a week or two?
The drains were coming out in 10 days, and New York City got hit with a major snowstorm.
Oh, crap.
The day I was supposed to get the drains out, I was supposed to go back to the hospital where I had the surgery. Not my surgeon, but his associate assistant who did the mastectomy with him says, all right, try to get there at like 10 a.m. I'll meet you by the emergency room. I'll get the drains out. But, I'm just telling you, at home that week, very protective of the area where the mastectomy was. There was 32 staples, the 2 drains going into like your side chest cavity.
Yeah. Those are the worst.
Yeah. Now we had to get to, the hospital was really only like 2 miles from the house, but the streets had like 1.5 feet of snow in them. Luckily we had all-wheel drive vehicle, but there were so many road closures. The city hadn't plowed yet. They got caught with their pants down. And I was like, I got to get these things out. I'm not waiting another day.
Yeah.
And the doctor was there. We did make it there. Patty's a good driver in snow. And he goes, all right, take a deep breath. And as I inhaled, he yanked the 2
they're long
things.
too.
Yeah.
Those tubes are long.
He yanked them out of my chest, and I was relieved.
It's like it hurts so good when they come out, right?
Yeah. Patty had been doing the draining and the measuring of the fluids through that whole thing, and there were so many beautiful gowns and shirts now that people are making for the drain bottles. They didn't have that when I was there. I had a safety pin attached to some gauze, basically.
We love Sherry Matthews, our fellow survivor. She created something called the recovery shirt. And,
it's amazing.
It's amazing. Really amazing. In fact, my one of my friends had a breast reduction not long ago, and I was able to, or my daughter, actually, my oldest daughter had a reduction like I did years ago. And so I said, oh, wait, I've got these new shirts that Sherry had sent me. And it was fantastic because it's got pockets inside for drains and just the moisture wicking.
I wish I would have had one when I had my surgery. But she's amazing, Sherry. She's gotten the guys in the coalition who have gone through surgery the last couple of years since we met shirts, and they love them, and they just wish they were there when I was there.
Me too. But aren't you so glad that we get to be a part of this? I call it a revolution where we're seeing all these changes and advancements. But did you have to have chemo or radiation, or did you just have surgery?
So this was the good news for me. So after the surgery, they do the biopsies right there, but they send some stuff for further testing. And the surgeon said, Mike, I'm going to follow up with your oncologist. So I got to the oncologist. He had the surgery report. They saw it was ER positive. They saw there was no introduction to any lymph nodes. There was no spreading. It was kind of encapsulated. And they put me on something called tamoxifen.
Yeah. And
tamoxifen is a drug like no other that I've ever taken.
Yeah.
And I did not have to have chemo or radiation. This beautiful head, I wish people could see it.
Your bald head.
I was follically challenged long before cancer.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was fortunate not to have chemo radiation because, again, I watched my sister go through it.
Right.
And the chemo did some pretty bad damage to her, and the radiation turned her, because they were giving her on the brain and stuff. It turned her into someone almost unrecognizable with all the drugs, the steroids, the radiation, the brain surgery. It was just a horror show.
Yeah.
But tamoxifen, when I first got diagnosed, they were putting me on for a 5-year dosage of it.
Right.
Once a day, 20 milligrams.
Tamoxifen, for those that don't know, tamoxifen helps block estrogen because Michael's cancer and mine was estrogen fed. if you will.
Correct.
But
So
it has some
blocks,
side effects. Some people tolerate tamoxifen okay and have a hot flash here or there. Some of us not so much. It turned me into a psycho.
Carrie, I don't know how, I mean, I talk to men all the time about tamoxifen, and some guys are like me, some guys are worse than me, and then some guys tell me that they have no effects. And I'm like, I don't understand. I suffered the hot flashes. I suffered anxiety. I suffered leg cramping. I suffered sexual dysfunction. I suffered
everything you can
swelling,
possibly,
joint swelling.
Yeah.
I could cry at a movie where I never cried at a movie before. Just
Seriously,
the emotions,
right?
the emotions were nuts.
Yeah,
And
I was a psycho. I'm telling you, I was a psycho. I told my oncologist, I love you, but I could kill you with my bare hands right now, and I wouldn't care. And she was like, oh, you're so crazy. I was like, no, I'm serious. She's like, I can give you something for that. I'm like, no, I'm not taking this shit anymore.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys who did stop taking it, and some of them did have reoccurrences.
The thing is, there's no guarantee.
There's
Either
no guarantee.
way. There's no guarantee. You can take it with the hope, and we know that science says and studies show that it can help keep it from coming back, but there are also plenty of people that did everything they were supposed to do, take the medication, and they still had recurrence. So you just never know. You have to kind of, I say, do what you're at peace with.
Right. And you know, when the doctor was explaining it to me, it was a small percentage of me taking it, and it was going to stop it from coming back. And I'm not a gambler, and I was like, I'll take the additional percentage that I don't want to go through this again. And then maybe, you know, now I'm 10 years out, but the tamoxifen changed me as a man. And I wish there was a different drug, but remember, we're getting prescribed the surgeries and the drugs that work on women. You know, as far as clinical trials for men with tamoxifen, they're few and far between. And the dosage is 20 milligrams once a day for everybody, no matter what your cancer is. That's what it is. Could they have broke it up to twice a day, a smaller dosage for men? I don't know. I just wish that there were more clinical trials for men. But at the time, I said, you know what, there's a 30% chance of reoccurrence. If I take the tamoxifen, it'll knock more percentage off.
Yeah.
But
so did you take it for 5 years?
I actually took it for 8 years because after 5 years, studies came out that said, if you take it for 10 years, it'll reduce it even more, the chance of it coming back. And then at the 8 years, I was like, I don't know why I'm still taking this drug. I'm a mental patient. It's, you know, makes you sexually dysfunctional. It just, it was a terrible drug. And 8 years was more than enough for me. And I took it religiously. I had a lot of weird rashes and side effects. It was just, the drug was freaky.
Yeah, it's so interesting how it affects different people. Some people tolerate it just fine, and other people suffer.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I took it for probably a year and a half, and then I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm a single mom with 2 teenage daughters. That in and of itself is difficult. Then you throw tamoxifen in, and I had to give my kids a safe word. I had to say, you know what? Sometimes I wake up enraged. I would wake up enraged for no reason. And I was like, oh my God, who am I right now, right? And I could feel it. And so finally I would have to say to them, look, you didn't do anything, and I didn't do anything. It's this medication. And they were like, well, then stop taking that shit because you're about to kill us. And I would just say to them, today is not a good day.
Yeah.
And what that meant to them was, Mom's going to be in her room trying to be on timeout. We're going to eat cereal and sandwiches and whatever else, and we're going to figure it out. But eventually, I told my oncologist, like, I cannot do this. So I ended up having a total hysterectomy, and then they want to put you on a different estrogen blocker, because even if you have a hysterectomy as a woman, you still produce estrogen or have it stored in your fat cells and in your liver. And I'm like, well, I got some fat cells, so I know I still have estrogen in me. So I tried 3 others in that same class of drugs, and they all gave me horrific bone pain, crazy emotional. You know, I'm kind of a tough chick like Patty, right? I grew up with 3 brothers. I don't have sisters. I'm not super sensitive, or I wasn't. And then I, like you, a Polaroid commercial could come on TV, and I was like crying my eyeballs.
Oh my God, it was terrible. It was an emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely.
And Patty was dealing with menopause, and I'm dealing with tamoxifen.
Yeah.
I don't even think we kept a blanket on the bed because we were both hot flashing like full time. And then like I could just be standing there, not interacting with anybody or doing anything, and then all of a sudden I could just feel the sweat beating up and my pressure rising.
Yes.
And just turned me into like a wet noodle. It was embarrassing at times.
Yeah. Totally embarrassing. I totally get it. I actually, after I tried those 3 different drugs, I kept having like even more horrific bone pain. I gained like 20 pounds in 3 weeks because I went into a whole on depression. I sat on my couch and just was like, fuck it, I'm about to eat whatever I want. And then I went into the, why am I even alive? You know, I wasn't suicidal, but I was in a very dark place. And I felt like I didn't survive and go through, you know, this horrific surgery, 28 lymph nodes removed. Now I've got lymphedema, chemotherapy that took me to death's door, radiation that, you know, clipped my heart and my lung. And now this, like, really? And I finally just had a conversation with my kids and I said, look, I know that I'm fortunate, if you will, to have this type of cancer, that there is something I can take to help the odds of it coming back, right? Versus people who are triple negative, who don't have another treatment option after their initial treatment. But I can't do this. And I don't want to be guilted because friends of mine with well intentions would say, but you have kids, you have to think about your kids. And I was like, I'm no good to them right now. They all told me, stop taking it, Mom. Control everything else you can. Try to get your diet and exercise in line and just enjoy life. And so that's what I did. I went off all drugs.
You know, I didn't complain really outwardly other than to Patty, you know, I mean, she knew the issues I was having, and to my oncologist, because I'm looking at friends who are taking radiation and chemo, and they're so much worse off than I was on tamoxifen. So I didn't complain outwardly to them because I didn't want to sound like, you know, I'm not going to compare my apples to their oranges because their oranges were much more bitter than my apples. So I sucked it up and dealt with it as best I can. And, you know, the thing is, I'm off tamoxifen for a couple of years now. The side effects, most of them are still there. Some of them, you know, went away or less, but
when I went off the ones that the last set of pills that I was on, within 2.5 weeks, I had 0 bone pain. I had 0 joint pain. I could sleep again. It seemed to almost resolve probably 95% of the side effects. So the other 5% must have just been from lingering chemo and radiation and all that other good stuff. But I mean, I felt such relief, and you know, because of that, I'm 8.5 years out now from diagnosis, but my doctor watches me like a hawk. You know, excellent. I was stage 3. I did have 6 lymph nodes positive. So, you know, I don't live my life in fear. I live it conscious of what I put in my body. I'm not a health nut by any stretch. I enjoy my wine, but I don't drink a bottle of wine every day. You know what I mean? I really
wouldn't make you a bad person, trust me.
Off the record. No, but you know, so let's fast forward a little bit because I could talk to you for like 6 hours.
Okay.
So now you, of course, at some point you discovered the Male Breast Cancer Coalition.
Oh yeah.
Which the CARE Project is a part of, and you're now like a lead advocate, right? Correct. So how did the whole advocacy part come about?
So I was living in the closet, so to speak. Again, asking Patty not to really tell people, and I wasn't public about it. And when I was retiring and I had the surgery, people heard that Mike's got cancer, and you know, I came back to finish out my last 2 weeks or something, and oh, Mike, we heard you had cancer. What kind of cancer did you have? When people hear you got cancer, they want to know.
They want to know.
They want to know.
Yeah.
And Carrie, I couldn't say breast cancer. I called it chest cancer, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And people would look at you like, chest cancer, okay. And then I changed the conversation to something totally different, and I went about my business that way for a long time. And then I saw a teaser on TV. There was a TV show in New York City called the Katie Couric Show. She was a news anchor, and she had her own show. And it's and it was a teaser saying, and it talked about male breast cancer. And I was like, male breast cancer? That's me.
Yeah.
And Patty, there's going to be a show on. I'm watching TV, and the Katie Couric show comes on, and here they have their panel with Katie, and it's this young kid, Brett Miller.
Yeah.
There's Richard Roundtree, and for those who don't know who Richard Roundtree was, he was the character Shaft.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, and this was like a cool macho dude.
Yeah, a man's man.
A man's man.
Yeah.
And a surgeon from Memorial Sloan Kettering. And the three of them were on national TV talking about men with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
not alone. I'm not a freak.
Yeah.
Richard Roundtree is here. This young man is here. And they're talking about it. And with that, the show ends, and I'm like, I'm running around because my head just exploded. I'm like having an epiphany that there were these other guys, and Patty's like, you got to contact them. You got to contact them. So at the end of the show, they run the credits, and it talks about the Male Breast Cancer Coalition contacting is a phone number. I pick up the phone right away. Who answers the phone on the other end but Peggy Miller?
Brett's mom, Peggy Miller.
The one-woman show.
Yeah.
And she's so happy to hear from you. Thanks for calling. This is the coalition. This is what we do. Oh, by the way, we're having something called Tops Off in New York City in 2 weeks. Would you like to attend?
Awesome.
Local,
there'll be other guys there by you.
There'll be other guys there. Oh, yeah, right down in Manhattan on Fifth Avenue. I said, yeah, sign me up. So Patty and I signed up. And, you know, Patty's like, this is what you were meant to do. You got to go. You got to meet these guys. And we went down there, and that's the first time I met another guy with breast cancer. I actually met 10 guys that day with breast cancer and their families. And these are guys who were different ages, different nationalities, different ethnic. There was, you know, white guys, there were black guys, there were Spanish guys. There was a little bit of everybody. And they were all there, most of them with their families. And, you know, we're talking with them, we're interacting with them. And we go to the top of this penthouse on this hotel, so to speak, and we're going to take our shirts off, and they're going to take a picture of us. The Empire State Building was right behind us.
I love it.
And that was the men, and behind the men were going to be women who were breast cancer thrivers and survivors. And they're going to be facing away from the camera because it would be considered, you know, maybe pornography or something with the women showing. And then behind that, anybody who wanted to volunteer, like caregivers and Patty and people like that, away from the camera. So here we are. I forget how many, there must have been like 30 of us, guys and girls, topless, up on top of this building, a little chill in the air.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing event.
Empowering.
For me because, a couple of the guys were really very embracing to me and Patty. And I became really good friends with some of them. And, you know, we left that day with a whole new outlook. I had a whole new outlook.
Good.
And one of the guys, his name was Bill Becker, who I'd become very friendly with, you know, invited me up to his house. He was doing a documentary about men with breast cancer. And we became very friendly, and Patty became friends with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you know it, but the guy goes on to become metastatic. Within a year of meeting him, he was gone. It was gone. It was so emotionally draining for me because that's the first guy who I knew, who I became friends with, that I lost to breast cancer. I, you know, lost my sister. I'd lost other women, but he was the first guy. And unfortunately, you know, over the years since I'd become an advocate for the coalition, we've lost so many other guys. And you could go to the coalition's webpage. There's an in memoriam page, and see all of these fantastic men, family men, just that had so much to live for, that lost to breast cancer.
I tell you, I am so thankful to be a part of that family. When I was diagnosed, I had, like I said, I have 3 brothers, And one of the first things I did was Google, do men get breast cancer? And I stumbled eventually on the Male Breast Cancer Coalition. So their website, again, is malebreastcancercoalition.org. We do partner with them to provide whatever support we can to male patients across the world, actually around the world, I should say.
Around the world, yes.
The CARE Project is tiny. The CARE Project is my nonprofit in Riverside, California. We provide limited financial support to male and female patients in our area, but then we also have partnerships with places like Lymphedivas, which is a compression sleeve company. And so those of us who've had a lot of lymph nodes removed and suffer from lymphedema need to wear these medical grade compression sleeves, some of us for 6 to 8 hours a day. And so I'm able to provide those to patients around the world. So we partner really well. When I get patients in that are male, I know that I have a whole family of brothers that I can call on, including you. So thank you for that. We've got to go, but let's set up another time that we can talk, because I really want to talk in depth about the advocacy and the groups that you're involved with, so that we can get that information out.
Absolutely.
I really think it's important that we shared your story. Mostly today, because that gives our listeners the background to you and your experience. And you know what? I didn't know that you had a sister that passed. So that's something that's a whole other show.
That's a story on genetic testing. We can go
that's what I'm saying. I think you're going to be my co-host going forward.
Let's do it. And thank you for the lymphedema sleeves, because I know several men who wear them.
Oh, anytime you need any.
The patterns are beautiful for guys to wear, as well as women. And they do
Shout out to lymphedivas.com. They help provide those for us. Whatever they can donate to us, they do as a small company, and then they allow me to purchase at a really low rate. I think they don't make any money off of my purchases to them. But you can learn more information about the CARE Project at thecareprojectinc.org. And then, of course, malebreastcancercoalition.org. And I just want to kind of end it there, because I really want to spend an entire show on advocacy with you. So I will be in touch, and we'll schedule that real soon. You can hear more of Michael's story, actually his whole story, and other male stories on malebreastcancercoalition.org. That website is chock full of information, from survivor stories to downloadable self-breast exam cards in various languages, to videos that show a self-breast exam. And what else is on there, Michael, that you can think of? Everything.
It's one-stop support network. You can find other men to reach out to. You can compare stories. You can see the in memoriam page, conference updates, different organizations that can help. There's so much there. I urge everyone to definitely go visit. We might be 1% of the breast cancer population, but let everybody know it sucks to be in the 1%.
I always say, so just to reiterate, most of us know it's 1 in 8 women, and right now the current statistic for men is 1 in 833.
Correct.
So that doesn't sound like a lot, and I've even been in conferences and workshops where I've heard a medical professional who shall remain nameless kind of poo-poo that fact and go, when I asked, well, what are you doing about male breast cancer awareness in your facility? And he said, well, it was a man too. He goes, well, it's only like, what, 1 in 1,000? And I was like, it's 1 in 833. And what if that was you? Yeah. And he just looked at me, and he was really annoyed because I challenged him publicly, but I was pissed.
Anytime you want to talk about it, I could tell you how much my advocacy has changed over the last 10 years, and what I see changing in the field as far as conferences and seminars.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about then. Let's talk about that. I always ask every survivor that I interview, what is the best and worst things to come out of your diagnosis? One of each.
The best thing that's come out of my diagnosis is the amazing friendships that I have made and have grown over the years. Just unbelievable amount of support, love. You can reach out to this group of family, and I'm talking men and women, because I've been embraced by thousands of women throughout this. And the worst that's come out of it is a day doesn't go by that I lose somebody that I was friends with, that I met at a conference, that I've met online, that I've
Yeah.
been involved with. Just this week, I lost two amazing women who were young women with young children. And it's a horror show to go on social media and see who's passed away because they just need more research. Metastatic breast cancer is a killer.
Absolutely.
And that would be the worst part. But
Yeah.
I love my brothers and sisters out there.
Yeah. Well, I love you and I appreciate you and I respect you and I love your wife. I'm going to visit you guys one day in New York.
Come on.
When we can travel again. But I will second to what you say. The worst thing, the best and the worst is just that. I've met some incredible people, from caregivers and supporters to moms and dads of patients to patients themselves, both male and female. And because I think because I have three brothers, was really drawn and oftentimes feel more at home within the Male Breast Cancer Coalition community and family than I do in the general population, if you will, of breast cancer patients, because I just get it. I get it. And I will never forget my first experience seeing a group of male survivors and the bond that you all have. You can say you were a freak, but I call you guys the unicorns of breast cancer in the most affectionate way, because you are unicorns of breast cancer, and I love unicorns. So
it's so true. But
it is.
Whenever you're ready, I'm ready. I'll be there for you.
We'll do it.
And we can talk advocacy. We can talk about whatever you want. I'm there.
We're on it. I will be emailing you later, sir.
All right. Just remind everybody, men have breasts too.
Men have breasts too. That's right. And if you want more information or you want to even talk to Michael, we can make that happen. So you can email me at cmadrid@thecareprojectinc.org or visit the malebreastcancercoalition.org for more information. And I love you and take care. I'll talk to you soon.
And on Twitter at BronxBorn409. They can
got
follow
it.
me.
Awesome. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. Please let us know what you think of the show by leaving a rating and review. And don't forget to share it with a friend. For more information or to connect with Carrie, go to thecareprojectinc.org.